This is Red America Radio, straight up conservative talk for today's red-blooded American, with the host of Eye on DC and Eye on South Florida's Karen Turk, making radio great again. Red America Radio.
It's another beautiful weekend in South Florida.
Oh, yes. Nice and warm.
And I'm here with Dr. Metzler yet again. Another week of lots of news, lots of stuff happening in the political reality show that is today's America.
It is, absolutely.
What's going on with Pelosi?
Oh, my gosh. So
what is up with that?
I don't understand this whole thing about submit it in writing. It's the State of the Union, Nancy. We need to see it.
It's almost like she doesn't want him to talk to the people. I almost feel like she doesn't want him to talk to the people because she knows when he talks that we're all listening.
And that's exactly what it is. I think she just says, okay, well, stay in your corner and I'll run this. But, at the end of the day, it's classic Pelosi. It is her classic behavior ever since she's been in politics. But we the people certainly understand that it's garbage, it's nonsense, it's a political stunt.
I think her tagline should be "Shut it down."
That's
shut
right.
it down,
It
Nancy.
Shut it down.
She wants to shut it down. She wants to just shut it down and make all of us stop listening because she's losing everybody. I don't think that I know very many Democrats at this point that are actually looking at Nancy and Chuck with any kind of respect at this point.
No, they're not. And as a matter of fact, she's already begun the process of retaliating against people who did not vote for her to be Speaker. So one of her most vocal opponents wanted a seat on the Judiciary Committee, and not so much. Nancy lobbied to get someone else on that position. Now, the interesting thing was this opponent is extremely experienced. Instead, Nancy lobbies to get a freshman on there with no experience. And she says, well, it's not retaliation. New York has 2 representatives already on judiciary. Yeah, right. Like, we believe that.
Yeah. I mean, she just wants somebody who, is going to be her follower. She doesn't want somebody who's a leader. She wants somebody who's going to, go along with her and Chuck and breed into this narrative that's just ridiculous at this point.
Well, it's overly ridiculous. And the fact is, they keep saying, oh, well, while the president is doing this and that, we're passing legislation. What legislation are you passing? I haven't seen anything. The stuff that you're passing has been passed before and been rejected.
There's nothing happening. There's nothing happening. The most exciting thing that I think has happened this week with Pelosi is, I don't know if you saw, but a few weeks ago, we had Laura Loomer on our show.
Yes.
And we're going to have her on again.
Oh, she's fabulous.
Amazing. And I actually might even have her on like next week or the week after because we have so much to catch up on.
She's fabulous.
She's done amazing things the past 2 weeks, including going to Nancy Pelosi's house. Did you see this?
Yes, I saw that. Oh, my God. That to me was really, really classic. I mean, to really just kind of overtake her space. It was great.
It was a lot of chutzpah. It was a lot of chutzpah. I mean, it really was.
She's got balls.
She does. She does. Chutzpah balls. I wasn't going to go with balls because we're on AM radio, and I don't know if we can say that, so I'm not really sure. But I was going to go with chutzpah because, she is just amazing, and her investigative journalism blows me away.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now, this is an example of what news is, not fake news. She is no Don Lemon or any of those people who just kind of make stuff up.
She was camped out there at Pelosi's house,
by
Pelosi's wall. It's so good.
I loved it.
It's amazing.
Because now we see okay, so you don't believe in walls, except when it comes to your property. As a matter of fact, why don't you just invite all of the folks who shouldn't be here? Invite them all in.
I think she did that too. I think Laura gave a shout out. I didn't see that part of it. I'm going to have to follow up on it. If you haven't seen this video online, listeners, you need to go on and just look up Laura Loomer and what she's been up to with Pelosi this past week because it's unbelievable.
Oh, she's fantastic.
And you're off to D.C. Are you going to go and visit Pelosi's house while you're there, Dr. Metzler?
Absolutely not.
Are you going to camp out with Laura Loomer?
Hey, if Laura's there, then I'll go.
You might. Okay. All right.
But other than that, no.
I would totally go with you. We could do an entire camping trip.
We could do that.
And I don't camp. But I feel like if I was camping at Nancy Pelosi's house, I have the expectation being that she lives in probably a beautiful home and a wonderful wall, that it would be like upscale glamping.
And that's exactly what it would
glamping.
be. It would be glamping. And, we can glamp together.
Yeah.
So that would be great. So I'm going to be in D.C. really just looking at issues of genocide's number one because there is, in fact, I'm on a law panel discussing genocide. There is a there is a U.S. law that looks at the issue of genocide. So I'll be discussing that.
Wow.
I'll also be talking about, on another law panel, the issue of international humanitarian law and the laws of war.
Wow.
And how that
that's
works.
very timely. I mean, our prayers go out, obviously,
Yes.
and our hearts go out to, the people that were killed in Syria, the 4 Americans. And, I think that's an unbelievable topic that we need to explore. I mean, what are you going to be talking about specifically?
Well, who are enemy combatants, how you really describe enemy combatants, what the law says about enemy combatants, how you can designate someone as an enemy combatant. So really just giving an update as to where we are in that, because so much has changed in the international arena. Every year, I update lawyers, law students on these issues so they understand the full lay of the land.
Wow. So enemy combatants, I've got a little tongue-tied.
Yeah.
That could be anything from terrorists to governments or dictators.
Could be. And you could have some domestic terrorists, for example, who, under the proper circumstances, could be labeled enemy combatants.
Ooh.
So we'll be talking about all of those things. I'll have some discussion about Guantanamo, about Gitmo, and kind of, what's the update in terms of what's going on there. And it's interesting. There's an interesting kind of quirk now because a number of people in the Right to Life movement are saying that, in fact, the U.S. Or the domestic genocide law could be used for the killing of unborn babies.
Ooh.
So it's an interesting legal argument, so I will explore that as well.
Right. Wow. All that lawyer stuff. I'm married to a lawyer. You're starting to kind of lose me just a little. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
But I like the topic. I think it's a really interesting subject matter, and I think it's super timely for everything that's gone on right now. I mean, I'm certainly concerned about what happened today. And, I think there's just a lot to explore there and what we have to do with foreign relations at this point.
Yeah, and the foreign relations piece is so important. I think that the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, is doing an amazing job, as is Josh. I keep calling him Josh. John Bolton as well. They're doing really an exceptional job. And
he's got a fabulous mustache, too.
Oh, yeah, he does. The mustache.
On just the conservative swag kind of thing. I just figured, because I know that's one of your favorite topics.
It is. I've envied that mustache
it's a great
for
mustache.
so long.
It's a great mustache. And we actually have a guest coming on here in a few minutes with a lot of personality.
Yes.
We have Brandon Tatum joining us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's great.
He's been a real viral sensation.
Yeah, he has, and really is shaking up the way that we look at a number of things in the American discourse. He's fantastic.
His video not only got over, I think it's 70 million views on Facebook, and I learned this when I was posting for us on social media in promotion for this show, but he also had more views on that video where he talked about Kaepernick taking a knee than the Super Bowl had the entire Super Bowl.
Oh, that's a good thing.
It's a testament to, how social media has changed everything we're looking at.
Absolutely.
I hope people are listening to the show and they're getting their news from us here on WFTL 850. But at the same time, social media has really become the medium of today.
Yes, because, we're sick of the traditional mainstream media, nonsense where they want to tell us what our opinion should be.
Yeah. Well, and you watch it, and it's so incredibly. This morning, I switched on CNN just for a quick minute, because I like to kind of just see what they're doing over there for a second. And it's just, you don't even know, you can't even imagine that they're talking about the same thing.
No.
It's so different from Fox News and what I usually have babbling on the background. It is two totally different things.
Well, you would think that you're living in a very different country. You think that you're in two different countries. The interesting thing for me, and I write about it in my book, is this whole notion of fake news and the fact that we don't have news. What we have are personalities. They get up there, and there's an inherent conflict. On the one hand, you have somebody who is a reporter for the New York Times and also an analyst for MSNBC. Problem, conflict of interest.
Absolutely. 100%. And, I'm looking at your chapters here on the topic of fake news, and you've got fake news, fake facts. The truth is casualty of war in today's America.
Absolutely.
And then you've also got another one that pretty much describes the whole Pelosi situation, how the swamp is undermining the republic one bite at a time.
And that's exactly
That's
right.
chapter 5. I like these titles. These are great.
Thank you.
These are fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's straight up conservative talk.
Absolutely. Straight up conservative talk, just the way we like it.
That's right.
And we got Brandon Tatum, who's going to be straight up conservative, straight up talk in just a few minutes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is a hot show, folks. Come on.
It is. It is a hot show.
It is.
And we have a couple of things on the horizon, too, that we're going to have going on that are going to be really, really exciting.
Yeah.
So everybody needs to follow you on social media if they're not doing so already.
Yes.
And they can find you everywhere.
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 Just at Dr. Chris Metzler. That's all.
At Dr. Chris Metzler, keeping it simple.
That's
I have
right.
to someday get as simplified as you do because I'm at Mrs. Florida 2016 on Instagram. And then I've got my Twitter, which is Karen, Karyn, Turk, Turk.
Yes.
And then my Facebook. My Facebook is easy to find. Facebook's still my favorite.
Oh, yeah. I like Facebook. They don't block me as much as Instagram does.
They do. I mean, they block me. I get blocked quite a bit on Facebook. And what I find with Facebook is they'll stop placing your posts in the news feed. I don't know if you've caught on to this. Now they do this quiet censorship. So last year, I would get an email that says, your post has been reported or you violated a community standard or whatever it is. Now they've moved to where they just don't distribute the posts. And I can see it because I know what my numbers are.
Right,
I'm a numbers
right.
girl. You
Right.
know me.
I
I'm
know
like
you.
a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I got my numbers going on. And when I see that, I'm like, they're not distributing that post. That post isn't getting out.
Yeah. And
that's
yeah.
That's why we actually post the show in a lot of Facebook groups. So if you're finding us somewhere, I'd love for our listeners to let us know where they're finding us because we're posting into a lot of these Facebook groups on a weekly basis, a lot of these conservative groups.
Yes.
And I'd love to know where people are finding us. And if you have any great Facebook groups that you're a part of that you think we should be following,
we'll absolutely do that.
we will follow them and we will post our shows in there and keep you posted on what we have going on because you got to hashtag stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
The NFRW, National Federation of Republican Women, brings together conservative women and raises their voices all over America. Join our movement, get involved in your local federation, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Listen up, red-blooded conservatives. Divided we stand. The Search for America's Soul by legal scholar, political analyst, best-selling author, and host of Red America Radio, Dr. Christopher Metzler, is a must-read. Metzler destroys the failed policy of the left on immigration, border security, fake news, racism, swamp politics, and takes on white liberals. A significant statement of politically and economically conservative ideas applying to today's America and that are sure to gain influence in decades to come. Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
Still using lamestream media for news? Stop being a victim to clickbait and visit Populist Wire. They're delivering real news to over 100 million people a year. Visit Populist Wire on Facebook or at populistwire.com.
And welcome back to Red America Radio. We have a very exciting guest, somebody who's been pretty famous for his viral videos and who has a really interesting background that I want to learn a lot more about. Welcome, Brandon Tatum, to the show.
Thank you for having me on.
I would love to talk a little bit about your success. I know you're doing a lot of things with Turning Point now, and you've been very outspoken as a conservative and very outspoken as a young person. You're really changing, America right now. And I'd love to hear about, what's been the most impactful thing for you? How did you get started doing these viral videos?
I think the way I started, and I think it was in a very organic way, was just being myself and expressing things that I felt was necessary to be said. My whole life, I've been a very outspoken person, thanks to my mom, kind of encouraging me to be that way. And I would say right around the time where Michael Brown's situation had happened, Barack Obama started really saying things that were negative against the police, and it really sparked something in me to change, how I saw politics and to try to be a little more active. And when Donald Trump was the candidate, he came to Tucson. I went to his rally, and the things that I saw there were so contradicting to what the media was presenting. And I had all of that combined. I've had enough. And I said, you know what, I'm going to say something about this because I can't hold back anymore. I need to tell how I feel, and I need to let the people who follow me know that this is where I stand. And little did I know that the little 100 people that would comment on my videos turned into millions. And I guess the rest has been history.
It's amazing. It really is. And your background, I was reading a little bit about your bio and just all the things that you've done. And I'd love to talk about how football plays into all of this and kind of your thoughts on the NFL and what's gone on with that, because I know you have a little history there.
Yeah, football has been a very impactful part of my life. Yeah, just kind of like a small backstory in how athletics has been a part of my life specifically. When I was 8 years old, I got arrested for smoking marijuana in a vacant house. And
wow, at 8 years old.
An era where my dad didn't play games. You do something, you get your butt whooped. And I just vividly remember this time I thought me and my brother were going to get, because me and my brother was involved, I thought we were both going to get beat down when we got home. But I'd never forget my dad telling me that, he didn't even spank us. He set me down in the car on the way home, and he said, if you don't change what you're doing, you'll never play in the NBA. And at the time, I wanted to play in the NBA. And that literally revolutionized my life. I never looked back on drugs or anything like that. I pursued athletics. I used to visualize my success. I became an All-American football player in high school. And then I went to college, and college just really changed who I was as far as the way I looked at America in race relations. Because I grew up in an all-black neighborhood. I went to an all-black school, Paul Ernst Dunbar. I graduated there in Fort Worth, Texas. And it was racially divided. I think that being in an all-black community, everything I did was centered around black issues. We call it Afrocentric. And I didn't have a lot of positive ideas about the white community. It was almost infused into my mind that there was always going to be a conflict and that white people didn't really like black people. And so my first opportunity to be exposed to reality, something different than what I grew up in, it was when I went to college. I went to the University of Arizona on a full scholarship, and just being around different people, being out of the black community and being exposed to pretty much 80% white on the campus, it really started to open my eyes to realize that, America isn't as racist as I was perceiving it to be. Never had any conflicts on campus. My professors never treated me any way, but probably great. A lot of it because I was an athlete on the football team. But, it really started to change the way I saw myself and the way I saw the country. And also in college, I got saved. I was born again at a church called Emmanuel Grace Apostolic Church. And that was one of the huge catalysts as well into changing, who I was, the way I viewed the world. And then also now where I stand with God begin to be the most prevalent thing in my life. So the football in and of itself kind of created a crescendo effect of different things that made me who I am today.
So from the standpoint, you talked about you grew up in primarily a black African-American community, that things changed when you went to college, but we are still at the point in the U.S., I think, where there is a continuing racial divide. So from a political standpoint and for generations to come, how can we as conservatives bring forth a message that is different and inclusive?
I think that, to be honest, based on my experience and exposure in the world outside of conditioning through media and all of the above, I think that the racial divide in America is very minimal. I think that it's mostly perceptualized through people who want to see it happen. Ever since I have been to college and left the black community that I've lived in specifically, I have never had a negative interaction with a white person. Only time I've had anybody who was racist against me or had a conflict with African-American people were two people when I was a police officer, who one was a redneck white supremacist, and then the other one, he was mad and he just called me the N-word. So I think that if when we look at America for what it is and we evaluate it in a very realistic perspective, I think that we'll see that the racial divide is nowhere near where it is perceived to be. Now, that's part of the message that I teach, is to tell people, look, evaluate your situation. Don't always project racism on every situation just because if there's an interracial connection or relationship or dynamic there.
It's almost like a misconception.
That we teach. I'm sorry. You had a question?
Yeah, I was going to say it's almost like a total misconception that, there is this huge racial issue here in this country. And, you know, I think the less we place focus on that, and I mean, I'm speaking of this as a white woman, a white conservative woman, I feel like the less we place a focus on that, the less it becomes a divide. Am I wrong? I mean, I feel like we're just placing so much focus on it, we're making it more and more of an issue.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like for instance, the young lady, the young girl that got killed, the 7-year-old girl.
Yeah.
This is an example of where our country has come. When people thought it was a white man that killed her, it was outrage. It was racism. Donald Trump was a dog whistling to racists and everything. And some of the black activists came out and they were wanting to give rewards for this person being captured. And then when it was found, which typically is what happened based on statistical data and what I know growing up, it was 2 black thugs who got into it with somebody and shot into the young girl's car because they thought it was another person. When they find out it was black people that killed her, it becomes a non-issue. You have, you know, organizations like Black Lives Matter that come out and they demonize these interactions that, to be quite honest, if there's no evidence that it was racist, it's only the dynamic of it being a black and a white person. And then when black people commit atrocities in this country against each other, or whatever the case may be, nobody talks about it.
It's ignored.
So I think that it's this push by people on the left to continue a narrative so they can have talking points and so they can project to the people that, oh, I'm going to fix this for you, even though it's not a problem. I've been almost all around the country. I've lived in a few other places, and I don't have any problems with white people ever. I've never had a white person treat me bad. Matter of fact, I think white people actually treat me better than black people do. So I just think that we have to get down to being individuals instead of this group think type thing. It's like in your own life, diagnose and detect who or what situations are actually racial tension. And I think when most people look in their own lives and they go to the grocery store, they go to Starbucks or something, they never experience racism. White and black people and Asian people, Hispanic people work together just fine 90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is, in fact, part of the conversation deals, so if you look at the issue of gun violence, for example, to the example that you brought up, part of the issue really is the failed policies of the left relative to managing crime within major cities. That's a large part of the issue. It is easier, though, from the left's perspective, to raise the issue of race rather than the failed policies of the left.
Yeah, I agree. It's like there are, which one do you attack first? The big issue that's going to take you years and it's going to take you to hold yourselves accountable, or can you attack the little issue that everybody gets emotionally attached to, but that's not even really, it's no there. We've been arguing and battling racism, the quote-unquote racial tension in this country forever. People are saying that racial tension in this country is bigger than it has been in the 50s, in the 40s. And it's because people are continuously perpetuating a narrative that's not happening. That's why you can't fix it, because it's not there. And I think that you made a great point by illustrating that these policies in these Democratic-ran cities are the problem. And it's hard to fix those policies. It's hard to fix culture that has been created because of these policies. You know, that's generations that need to be changed because it took them generations to get to this point. A lot of the conflict that we see in gun violence, and majority of this gun violence that I see are from communities with strict gun laws. But there's cultures of gang and violence within these communities. For instance, everybody talks about Chicago. And the reason I keep saying Chicago, because it's like a war zone. And Chicago is not even in the top 5 for murder per capita. So, but we can see that they have 70, 80 shootings in a weekend. They have 14, 15 people dying over the weekend. And that is because of culture and because of what has been evolved based on policies and stuff that the Democrats have created, and also unaccounted for culture that black people have created that's not being spoken about. This action and these violent things are occurring, and the reason why we haven't seen it improve like it should in the last 8 years under Barack Obama, or even, matter of fact, the last 2 years under President Trump, we haven't seen it improve much, is because people aren't attacking what the real issue is. The issue isn't guns. The issue isn't that you put restrictions on guns. Because where I grew up at, if you wanted a gun, you just buy a stolen gun. And they were on the streets everywhere. All you got to do is meet the right person and you buy a hot gun. So it's not the issue of gun regulations. One of my cousins got 60 years in prison. He was a prohibited possessor, and he still had a gun and shot somebody. He didn't care nothing about what gun laws were in place. Only people who don't want to go to jail care about gun laws. So I think that if we focus on the proper things by doing real evaluations on our problems instead of making partisan claims, I think we'll get a lot further in our country.
Well, yeah, and it's frankly, look, it's easier for the democratically controlled cities. It's easier for them to raise the issue of race and division because once they do that, they continuously get reelected anyway. They don't solve the problems. They show up around when it's time for election, and then after that's over, the next time you still have the same problem over and over and over again.
They just keep spinning the same narrative again and again and focusing on all these things that are just furthering or dividing our country. It's a lot of what's in your book. I mean, it's a lot of what's in your book, Chris.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
You know, Brandon, I had the pleasure of seeing you at Turning Point, and I just want to focus on that for a quick second and talk about the difference that you're making with these kids through Turning Point USA and these high school and college kids that are looking up to leaders like yourself, you know, especially, you know, in the minority community, but also just in general, you know, because again, the more we focus on the race, the more it's a problem.
Yeah.
But these kids are looking at you and they're seeing what you're doing and they're seeing how you've rose from such adversity and every reason not to succeed. And here you are, you've played for the NFL, you became a police officer, now your viral videos went crazy, and now you're speaking to these groups of kids. Thank you for doing that. I think everybody listening to this is thankful for your service and thankful for what you're doing right now to give back to the next generation of conservatives through Turning Point USA. And we've just been delighted to have you on the show. We're going to have to catch up with you again because there's so much to talk about on this topic. Thank you so much, Brandon, for joining us.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks for having me and by all means, have me back, and we'll have some more conversation. Thank you, guys.
Sounds good. Thanks so much. And you've been listening to Straight Up
Conservative Talk
on Red America
Radio.